And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
You won't believe what just happened at Quantico. President Donald Trump just humiliated the country's top military leaders in the most embarrassing way possible. And he didn't just disrespect them. He straight up threatened the generals, warning that their careers could disappear if they didn't obey him. While the nation is still in shock and everyone is questioning his judgment, Lawrence O'Donnell, one of Trump's fiercest critics, has stepped in. And what he exposed about that day is so shocking it could spell serious trouble for Trump. But what exactly did he reveal? Let's get into it. The sudden call to Quantico. It all started with a sudden call that no one expected. On the morning of September 30th, more than 800 of America's top military officers, including generals and admirals, were ordered to report to Quantico immediately. There was no explanation, no reason, just a message that the president wanted them there, right now. For many, it felt strange, completely unexpected. Because remember, the military isn't called together like this unless there's a crisis. Still, by afternoon, the base auditorium was filled. Rows of uniforms, silent faces, and a quiet sense of unease. Now, let's be real. They expected an urgent briefing about national security, maybe a new defense plan or a global threat. But when Donald Trump walked in with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, everything changed. Something about his entrance, the pause before he spoke, it felt different. The air was heavy, almost uneasy. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes before a speech. It was the kind that comes before something no one is ready for. Because what their president was about to say, no president in the history of the United States had ever said to the nation's most powerful military leaders. But that day, Donald Trump was about to break that line. And believe me, once you hear what he said next, you will never look at the president the same way again. The warning to generals, because what came next wasn't a policy, it wasn't a strategy, it was a threat, spoken directly to the most powerful generals in America. Yes, you heard that right. Standing before more than 800 senior officers, President Donald Trump said, "Just relax. If you want to clap, clap. Do whatever you want. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave. Of course, then your rank and your future will disappear." Wait, let me quote that again. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave. Of course, then your rank and your future will disappear. Those words hit like a shockwave. It was something no American president had ever said, and something no soldier should ever have to hear. Because everyone knows, the armed forces don't serve a politician. They serve the Constitution. They protect the nation, not the ego of a leader who might not even last until the next election. And yet, here was the president, openly hinting that disagreement could destroy a general's entire career. He wasn't asking for duty, he was demanding obedience. It was chilling. The line between a president and a dictator blurred right there at Quantico. And that's why this single moment sent shockwaves through Washington. Reporters called it a disgrace. Lawmakers called it a national humiliation. But unbelievably, this was only one part of what many now call the most embarrassing military event ever held on U.S. soil. Because after threatening his generals, Donald Trump didn't stop. He went even further, into ideas so bizarre they left the entire room stunned. The bizarre ideas. President Trump said that the United States should bring back battleships. Yes, the massive steel war machines from World War II. He said, "That's old technology." I don't think it's old technology when you look at those guns, but it's something we're actually considering. The concept of battleship. Nice 6-inch sides, solid steel, not aluminum. Are you serious? Battleships? In 2025? These aren't museum pieces he's talking about. These are relics from a completely different kind of warfare. The modern U.S. Navy relies on submarines, carriers, drones, and digital intelligence, not gigantic floating cannons built for the 1940s. Honestly, it sounded less like military strategy and more like someone daydreaming about an old war movie. But then it got even crazier. Trump said the military should use American cities as training grounds. His exact words, "We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military." Wait, what? American neighborhoods, where ordinary citizens live, work, and raise families, turned into training zones for troops? Are you kidding me? That's not a strategy. That's chaos. The U.S. military isn't built to occupy its own cities. It's sworn to protect them. Those words didn't just raise eyebrows. They set off alarms. Commentators, lawmakers, and former generals called it unhinged, reckless, and disturbing. People started brutally criticizing this insane meeting. They began openly questioning the president's mental health, asking, is he even mentally fit enough to lead this country? But among them was someone who saw it all, analyzed every word, and later dropped a televised bombshell. Yes, you guessed it, Lawrence O'Donnell, one of America's most outspoken political journalists. And trust me, what O'Donnell exposed about that day is going to be the biggest threat Donald Trump has faced yet. O'Donnell's bombshell. O'Donnell, the journalist who's always been one of Trump's loudest critics, didn't just attack him this time. He exposed him. He called Trump's Quantico speech stream of consciousness madness, complete hallucinations, and an endless stream of pathological lies. In other words, O'Donnell was saying Trump wasn't giving a speech. He was rambling, jumping from one thought to another, making things up as he went. Then he went further. He directly attacked Trump's appearance and judgment, saying, the madman orange makeup he slathers on himself is another proof that the man has no capacity to make judgment about anything, including his looks, never mind nuclear weapons. Harsh words, but his point was clear. If a man can't make good choices about himself, how can he make decisions about war and peace? He highlighted that at 76 years old, Trump was showing clear signs of fatigue and frailty. He appeared very, very tired, almost sleepy, sometimes struggling to finish even basic sentences. He even mocked the entire event, saying those generals who earned their jobs in ways Donald Trump never could had to sit through what he called a performance by a clown. It wasn't just criticism, it was humiliation. And honestly, who could disagree? The most disciplined men in America, the nation's top generals, were forced to sit there, and they listened to threats, lectures, and bizarre fantasies coming from none other than their own president. O'Donnell didn't hold back. He tore down the entire event piece by piece, calling it delusional, dangerous, and disgraceful. But wait, if all this already sounds shocking enough, you probably haven't seen what every major news outlet and big name in America is saying right now. A warning for America. According to CNN, the event was unlike anything America had seen before. Their report, titled "Trump's Ominous Move to Recruit Generals and Admirals to His Political Cause," said it clearly blurred the sacred line between politics and the military. Trump's words, they said, weren't about national defense. They were about loyalty, personal loyalty. Reuters called it an unusual military gathering in Virginia. They pointed out how pathetic it was for the president to summon hundreds of top officers like that, only to deliver a speech filled with threats, self-praise, and bizarre military ideas. And then came the reaction from Capitol Hill. Congressman Jason Crow, a veteran himself, called the entire scene filled with lies, threats, and contradictions. He didn't hold back, saying it was a national embarrassment. Former generals and defense analysts went even further. They called the Quantico speech abhorrent, an abomination. They warned that what Trump did that day weakened the very foundation of the armed forces, replacing constitutional duty with political obedience. Now, let's be honest. What we had in Quantico wasn't just another political scandal. It was a warning, a moment for America to stop and ask, what is happening to its leadership? When the President of the United States stands before his generals and threatens them, when he speaks like a ruler, not a servant of the people, that's not strength, that's danger. So what do you think? Is America ready or even safe with a president who doesn't seem to understand the weight of his own words? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this video, make sure to subscribe, because what's coming next might just change the way you see everything about American politics.